in beginning your simple box form drawing, these are the things you're going to need. All the information is here on this floor plan and these two elevations, and also on this information sheet. It gives the heights, widths, and depths of everything. And this is where we're going. We're creating a master bedroom. Simple boxes first, of course. We have a built-in cabinetry over here, a wardrobe, and a pendant light fixture, a hanging light fixture. The bed, of course, a large size bed, end tables or bedside tables, headboard and baseboard, window, and this could be either seating, maybe a chaise, or it could also be a cedar chest, something like that for storage, blankets and so on. Now, where to begin? The best place, of course, is at the back of the room and coming forward. But before we do that, we have to make sure we have everything on the grid that we need to be there. The thing to highlight first of all is the eye level. That has to be constantly on our minds, where our eyes are in relation to what it is that we're drawing. If something's below, for example, you're going to see the top of it. If it's above, you're going to see the underside of it. Our two vanishing points are there as well, the left vanishing point and the right. Another thing we need is an additional foot. So each of these boxes is a foot by foot, and we need one more foot over here. So to do that, we have to make a special note of what is 4 feet high on this wall. Now, we have to have half the height, and this is 8 feet, so half the height is 4 feet, and we have to make that very clear before we add this additional segment, increment. Okay, so there's 4 feet. To obtain that second foot, you have to go from the bottom of this increment through 4 feet, which is half the height, and see where it hits the ceiling. And where it hits the ceiling gives you that next increment. I have to do my best to keep this straight. And you would take your time to fill in the rest of the floor and the rest of the ceiling. But for now, I'd like to just get started on building that first piece. And that's our built-in cabinetry. And you'll find that noted here at the bottom. It's 3 feet wide and 7 feet high. And the heights of the shelves are given as well. So it starts right at the beginning of our drawing. So I'm going to count in the 3 feet. Here's our 3 feet. I'm going to go up. This is 5, so I'm going to go up 7. So now I know what the outside of this box should look like. And it's good to use your vanishing points all the time to make certain that you're getting things all lining up from the same point. And don't allow your vanishing points to become too large. If you do, they will become inaccurate. So here we are, we're at 3 feet. And according to the information, it's 2 feet inside. So I'm going to just mark off what 2 feet looks like here. And remember that you have to pierce the picture plane. If you want to build inside the wall, you pierce the wall. Go right in. Let's do that first, and we'll figure out how far to go in a moment. Okay, so now I have my 2 feet here. I put that along this line. You shouldn't really use the increments like this any more than for the amount of 2 feet. For example, if this was 5 feet, I would do it a different way, but it's okay to rely on the estimate of 2 feet at this point. Now I've hit this next perspective line. I go the other way. And don't forget that you need to outline all of this in black ink at the end. The pencil crayon helps us to distinguish one line from another. We're going to have so many. But in the end, you need to make them more apparent with the black ink. Now, our shelf heights. So we have one at 2.5 feet, 4 feet, and 6 feet. So here's 2.5. And 4 feet we already know. And 6 feet, which is here. So with shelves, it's a good idea to use a double line. That always helps me to remember what exactly this is, that double line. Now, you'll have to remember to just ignore this 4 feet, unless like this, we needed it. But otherwise, it was just to help us get that extra increment so that we could build in our shelf. Now we have to put in the shelves themselves using our left vanishing point. That's how we built into the wall. And you stop. You stop when you get to the thickness or the depth of the shelf. You can't go past that. And the top we have this underside. We've got to put this underside. And then, just as I mentioned earlier, that's why it's important to have that awareness of your eye levels. You're always thinking, is it below eye level? Am I going to see the more of the top? Especially as you get closer and closer to the eye level, because the depth of these shelves is getting shallower and shallower. This one is fairly far away from the eye level, so I'm getting quite a bit of depth here. The next piece is our wardrobe, and it's actually at the back here in this corner. So it's 5 feet wide and 2 feet deep. Its actual placement, though, we need the floor plan for that. So it's 1 foot in, 2 feet deep, and it's okay to just kind of pencil something in here. 2, 3, 4, 5. To give you some help in finding something. And you should check to see. I should have 2 feet before this, and I don't. So I've done something wrong here. So I've gone in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my mistake. So several ways to self-correct. You see again how far away from the closest wall. How far away is it to the next piece of furniture or the next element in the room? So that gave me the advantage of finding my mistake quickly. Okay, so we're coming out from the wall now, so it's right against the wall. So this doesn't seem very large at all, and that's because it is so far back in the room. But we see now in this elevation, the height we have to have 2 feet above it. So I'm looking at this first vertical, and I know I've got to stop it here. And this next vertical, I have to stop it there. I'll use my vanishing point. Now, I have to bring it forward, but I don't know what that will look like. So remember, when you're ever stuck, you have to make a vertical usually. That's what's needed so that it will meet up with your next perspective lines. So if I bring this forward, I'm sort of trying to highlight the parts that may not be so obvious. I'm bringing this forward, just the way I did down below. These are two the same idea. Then I have to just make sure that I've got my vertical aligned with that line, that red line. And I go the other way where those meet. I go the other way. Now if I want to mark the center of that, I can estimate 2.5. That's going to help me later on when I begin to detail my work. We're going to take a look at the ceiling and where to place our light. So we can tell that from our floor plan. I find it easiest to find it on the floor plan. So we'll start from the wall that we just completed our work on and move forward. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes over. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes over, and it's from this wall, our window wall, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our box for our light is going to begin here, and it extends 2 boxes. And it goes over 2 boxes. Now, what have I got nearby that I can count on to help me with this? Well, all I have are my walls at this point. I don't have anything else around it. But I could see if I have enough room on the other side for the bed, 2 boxes. So I've got 2 boxes. And then I've got left over 1, 2, 3, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So after the 2 boxes for the bed, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And all I have is that wall right now. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to just check again. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have to see, have I enough room for the seating and the bench? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Using my right vanishing point. Always use your vanishing point, because you're relying on a small point to bring you up. And bring it over. This is also going to help us when we want to get how far down we want to hang our light. And I can do the same here. Now it doesn't seem like this would be helpful when you're sketching, but this is very helpful because you're becoming aware of how small things become as they diminish. You're getting an idea about that. So the more you do of this, the better. So I can bring that up now, and I've found a square that right there. So that looks pretty good. And I can try this one. So that's 2 boxes away. That's where I need to be, 2 boxes away. And I can also find this one. So I've been able now to find the box I made on the floor. I've found it on the ceiling, I found the 4 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. This lined up. That happens sometimes, and that's okay. It's not a problem. If it doesn't, that's not a problem either. It has nothing really to do with that aspect of the grid. What it has to do with is just where that back part ended. So you have to be aware of that sort of thing happening. So now we've got, I want to do this one so I don't make a mistake. For the time being, we can always change this when we choose our light fixture. It might be closer to the ceiling, it might be further away, but we are only at 8 feet. So a good one to choose would be 6.5. So here's 6 feet, here's 6.5. 7 is shallow. It would be good for a light fixture that's closer to the ceiling. And now I come across to my 2 orange lines, and I'm dealing with the front because that's what that line gave me, that one that I drew to the wall. So now I've got a box, and I can see the underside of my light. That's what this is telling me. So I only go to here because that's where I needed to go, and I'll go across here. So now I've got a box that gives me the underside of my light, and it gives me the sides of my light. I should strengthen those. The box for my light, of course, because once we start putting our details in, it's going to look completely different. But and the reason I chose the floor was because it's the easiest thing to see. And this is a little distorted. These boxes are, even at the back, are a little distorted. So this was the easiest thing for me to see. Also, when I go to map my shadows, I now know where the center of my light fixture is, and I can use that to help me project my shadows. The carpet is 10 feet by 11 feet. It's 11 this way and 10 the other way. So let's begin by finding out where it is from the corner of the room. Corner of the room is very helpful. In fact, it might be a good idea to put a line for the corner of the room so you can always look there and orient yourself. Now, the carpet. So we want 3.5 from this wall. So 1, 2, 3.5. And it goes over 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.5. And let's see. That leaves us a half left over at the end of the drawing. So that seems about right. And we go to 11, and this is 11. So we know that because this was 10 and we added 1. And it might help us in discovering where something else is. That's always the thinking, why you proceed with something at a certain point in the drawing. Now this is going to go off my page, but that's okay. We're going to map out a few things at once here. We're going to start with where that is. So it's a half a box away from the wall. So I can see that. It's a half a box. It's a half a box away from the back wall. So this was a full box. This is a half a box. So I'm going to start 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So there's a whole box between it and there. Okay. And it's a half a box in from the edge. So, and it's 1.5 boxes deep. So I go right to the 1. And it's 1.5 wide. So this was a half. Now I'm going to go 1. So that's approximately where it will be, but I have to check to see that I have enough boxes left over for the bed. So it's 5 boxes wide. So I need 2 boxes before that light line. See how that's being helpful now? There's my light line. And I need 3 boxes on the other side. So 1, 2, 3 boxes on the other side. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I know where the bed is going to be as well. It too is a half a foot from the wall. So when I put this mark in, I'm going to put it a half a foot away. Okay, and it goes like this. Now, I have 2 of those. And I know where the other one is going to go. So it would be better if I were to draw them both at the same time. So I know it's a half a foot. I'm going to put that half foot in so I know where that is. And I know the bed is going to start here. And this is another 1.5, so I know that this is about a half here. So let's put in a line for the bed. And the 1.5 for my little cabinet here. That's 1.5. Now this is very distorted out here, as you see. So I'm wondering if I maybe should exaggerate that a little bit. That's why I'm stalling, but I don't think so. I think I'll go with what we have and see where it gets us. So now the height of that, you can see on your elevation, is 2 feet. And that's also the height of our mattress. So now, I can't just bring 2 feet from the wall. I have to walk this over to the wall first. Using my right vanishing point, I'll walk it over to the wall and go up 2 feet using as straight a line as I can make it. And I've got 2 feet, but I don't have verticals up. Remember, that's usually where people get stuck, is if they don't put a vertical up in preparation for their perspective line and there's nowhere to go. So there's nothing to meet it when it gets there. So you have to make sure. And I'm not thinking about how tall it is right now. It's important to know that you can really only think about one thing at a time. Well, me anyway. I think if you try to do too many things at once, remember there was our 2 feet, it's so I'm bringing that over. I brought that 2 feet over. Now I use the other vanishing point, so you see that we're just moving from one vanishing point to the other, to the other, to the other, and it's all beginning to take shape now. And it is, maybe, it may seem odd that we would, the bed being the focus of the room, not to do that first, but it's important to work from the back of the drawing forward so that all these confusing perspective lines will make a little more sense as you go along, rather than putting what's important in first. We're moving from the back to the front. And I'm putting up my corners here. And now I can use this height. They're the same height, so I just bring this across. And this table, we may not even see it. It gets tucked away behind the bed, but you might see a lamp that you put on it, and it's what gives the room some authenticity. These little glimpses of things makes it look more real than just isolating everything with no overlapping. Okay, so there. Now this one looks more square, which it is, and the other one looks more distorted, but that's all right. Next is our bed, and we've almost got it there. We've got it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feet wide, and don't worry, the light is not meant to be hanging directly in the center. It's more the center of the room than it is the center of the bed, so don't worry about that. And it's 7 feet long, but there's a half a foot for our headboard. So that half a foot that we had left over here, we're going to make use of that as our headboard. And it has a height as well. So we can use our elevations if we like. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4 feet high. So it's not against the wall. So we have to walk it to the wall and go up. Using your right vanishing point, we're going to walk it to the wall and go up. And we're going up 4 feet. And you bring that across. Now, we don't have a vertical up, so that's very important. We've got one vertical is up, and it's the same vertical as the back corner of our bedside table. You have to bring the other corner up and bring this across. Now, if it's helpful for you to make more sense of this by shading some things in, you can do that the way that we've always been doing it. But you have to be a little careful. There's a little more overlapping here than we had in our little room, our little one-point perspective room. So maybe hold off on coloring anything in until you really, really have to, and in order to make sense of it. Don't erase any of your lines, though. We've got to keep those. They're valuable. So here, remember, was the corner of our cabinet, which we had on the other side. Remember that a large part of why we go to all this trouble is symmetry, that what we've done on one side, we do exactly the same on the other. That's what gives it professional look. That's what gives it a convincing look in space. Now we can start with our 7 feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's our 7. This is the width of our bed, remember, that we had. So now it's just a matter of using our 2 vanishing points. And now the height of the mattress, as I mentioned before, is 24 inches or 2 feet. Not all mattresses are that high, but ours is. So let's get that handled. We don't know what that is, so we just have to put up a line. Remember, if there's not a vertical, it might be troublesome. So we can use that same line, and we've got 2 feet right here. So it's the same height as our side table. Let's check that, make sure that's the case. So look at an elevation. Here we are. Here's the bedside table, here's the bed, and they're the same height. and the mattress starts here. So that's the end of our bed. We better put a vertical up, remember. If they're not there, they'll make trouble for you. And the other way. Now I've got to make sure I've got the right line. So it is a constant back and forth, a constant checking, a constant back and forth. So you've got to really have a focused attention. If you don't, you'll not get this to work. So now the other thing I have to do is make a line. Make sure that you get it at this point. We have to show where that is against the headboard, so that we're not going right back to the back of the headboard, that we're making sure we know exactly where the front of the headboard and the top of the mattress meet. In case anyone has a baseboard, we need to leave half a foot here. So let's get that in. There's, say, half a foot would be about like that. Now, I should have extended this before I did that. And the height of that, we can see on our elevation, the height of that is 2.5 feet. 2.5. So you can also use the information that's written there as well. So this is 2 feet and 2.5. We can use that same line we had before, but we have to have verticals. If we don't have verticals, we'll be just guessing. So let's go back, and we have 2.5 feet. So there's 2.5. Now this seems rather thick for our bed, but once you start carving away at it, depending on what type of a headboard, a baseboard it is, whether it's carved wood or it's upholstered, you'll maybe need this much thickness. And it's the same thickness as we have at the back, which is really quite startling when you think about it, that they're the same. Okay, so that's it. It's 2.5 feet. There's the height of the top of the bed. Here's the height of this. So we can start now to put in our bench at the end, or cedar chest, or chaise, could be anything. And it's probably not going to be as wide as the bed. It'll probably be more like 4 feet or 4.5 feet, but we're going to put it in. Remember always that when we put these things in, these simple boxes, what we're doing is just putting in something to give us a start and to give us symmetry. What we do on one side, we have on the other, and then we can modify it. I have everything here I need for this. I've got a 1.5. And it's also, if we look at our measurements, it's only 1.5 feet tall. So if you have a back to this, you'll have to add more height to the back. But the seat of it, this is only the seat of it, is at 1.5 feet. So I'm going to go back this way this time and use 1.5 from here. So it goes all the way back to the wall, and I've got 1.5. I don't have verticals, so I've got to put them up. So here's our 1.5. Okay, and I use my other vanishing point. We don't have verticals here. This may be out of the camera range, but I'm putting in the corner that's closest to me here. And remember, with your verticals, you don't know how high to make them, so you just make them high. And I'm bringing this height along. And use my vanishing point. And they match up. So you'll also see that this looks quite enormous here, but once we start whittling away at it, it will end up looking a little less huge.